So I know you just said, oh my gosh, Lori, I'm ready. I'm going to trade my house up for another house. You didn't say it, right? You did. What does that really mean to trade your house up for another house? Could be bigger, could be smaller, could be, it could be a beach house. It could be a island house. It could be a mobile home. It could be anything you choose it to be, right? The reality is you've been living in your house for probably 7, 8, 10, 5 years, and you've probably really enjoyed it and it serviced your time that you were there. Maybe you did some upgrades, maybe you didn't. Well, when you've decided to make this shift, make this change, you definitely do not want to remodel right as you go on the market. You're just not going to see the return on investment. It's going to cost too much money. But here are 10 great tips for when you really are ready to make that move. Again, you could be going bigger, you could be going smaller. I can tell you this, going smaller is harder than going bigger generally because you're just attached to furniture. And so you tend to want to take all your furniture with you. And when you go smaller, you just can't. You got to go with smaller furniture as well. So be open to the idea of a fresh new beginning and be open to the idea of having the money in the bank to be able to start that fresh start. So here's 10 great tips for trading your home either into a larger or smaller house, whatever it be. One, first, you need to assess your needs. You need to determine why you need that larger or smaller space. Why are you really making this move? What are the main determining factors? The lifestyle change, the growing family, or the shrinking family, or we're just ready for a change in scenery. Location is different. Retirement has come, or you're like, gosh, I need more support. I need someone to help me. I just need less to deal with. So you go, okay, I'm ready. I've got to do this. Easiest way to figure that out, I really encourage you to sit down, journal through it, write it down. Whether you're electronic or your paper, it's up to you, whatever makes best sense. Maybe you do it on a big whiteboard. I don't know. However, you can see it visually so you could go, this is the reason why I'm changing my housing circumstance. There's so many reasons. And once you decide to move, it's very expensive, guys. So you don't want to just be like, oh, I'll just do it. And if it doesn't work out, I'll just come back. It's not that easy. I had a client who did it once, sold their beautiful home here locally to the Foothills community here in Southern California, and they wanted to relocate to the beautiful Florida beaches. They were ready for retirement. And exactly 1 year later, they called me and they said, I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know why I did this. They were in tears, crying, so upset. And ultimately, they ended up coming back here to California. And it's all worked out for the best. It cost them some money, though. And it was a tough move because they couldn't sell the Florida property right away. They had to give that a couple of years. So in the meantime, they were renting when they made their move back here to Southern California until they could sell the Florida house, until they could buy the house here in Southern California. It all worked out just the way it was supposed to for them. Just be advised that that can happen. And so you need to think about the second reason. the financial review, the impact that this will have on your financial status. I've known many people to move out of Southern California only to come back because they thought they were getting a lower standard of living, and everything was just lower, including their income, including certain things. And so they took some debts with them that just burdened them, and they couldn't support it, and they needed to come back here. So you really need to figure out what the sales price of your home is, what your debt is, anything that you're incurring in this move, even the cost to relocate, especially when you go out of state, is so much more money. So you definitely want to look at all aspects of how it will impact you financially. You don't want to move and get out of the area, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I can't afford to live here. And I thought everything was going to be cheaper, and it wasn't. I mean, you can defer to one of our other episodes on the podcast where I talk about property taxes. Everyone talks about moving to Texas because it's so much cheaper. And if you didn't know, the property taxes in Texas are at 2%. 2% is a lot, as opposed to here in Southern California, the majority of communities are 1.1125%. So that leads me to my third tip, which is do the market research. Study the real estate market trends. Hire the real estate professional that understands the area you're moving into, knows what's happening, is aware of whether or not the market is increasing or shrinking in that area, the lack of inventory that may be available to the amount of inventory that is available, right? We have so much to consider when making that move. You want to definitely hire an agent that knows the area, does the market research. If you're one of our clients and you go, Lori, we're going to move to Florida, we're going to refer you a great professional agent that understands the area that you are interested in. Which then leads me to the fourth tip. You need to sell before you buy. Or you don't. Maybe you don't. Maybe you do. You need to determine that by talking with a lender. If you're relying on all the cash, the equity growth from the sale of your house to buy the other property that you're purchasing, either cash or putting as much down and financing very little, then you will need to sell before you buy. Or there's the alternative. There's what's called a bridge loan. Well, what's a bridge loan? When someone, a lender, gives you a loan and you carry it until you sell your house. That's very possible too. And along with that comes fees. Not the cheapest, but it's definitely a lot easier than selling and buying at the same time. Whew, that's hard work. I had one of my clients say it's like birthing twins. It really, really is hard work. And carrying potentially two mortgages at the same time can be very scary as well. So it leads us to the next tip, tip 5, home equity. So potentially, let's use this scenario. You owe 700, you're selling your house for 760,000. You only owe 250. So you are like, I got about $500,000 available, right? I'm going to use that to go buy another property. Well, you could do that. You could use that money and go buy another property, but you'll need to sell your house to do it. Or you could say, hey, Mr. Lender, I'd love to take a loan, a second home loan out on my first property, go buy that other property, and then sell my other property. If you choose to do that, you need to know the lending guidelines on borrowing the money from your first house to use it on your second house and how soon you're going to sell the first house. So that's where you need to have a great loan consultation with a great lender who can answer all of those questions to help you through the process, which then takes me to tip number 6, mortgage pre-approval. That's exactly what we just said. You need to have a great lender who can help you get just the right lending program for your replacement property. Unless you're blessed and you're buying it in cash, well then, hallelujah, you got a paid for home and you're going to rest and relax and just enjoy yourself. I know the world says, keep a mortgage. And I'm going to tell you, as your Ramsey endorsed local provider, get rid of that mortgage. I have a paid for rental and I love it. This moves us to step number 7. Get great professional help, right? Great lender, great realtors to help you make this move. You're going to potentially need 2 agents because you need one agent to handle your purchase or sell here and another agent to handle your purchase or sell somewhere else. Your one agent may not be able to do it all, unless, of course, it's all local. I've done it. I sold my house and only moved 2 blocks over. Made it super easy. Same agent, handled everything. And if you're moving out of the area, that's not the same. And you may need a lender that if you're moving it out of state, you need a lender who does loans in that area, right? So you want to make sure that all of your professionals are licensed and educated and understand and know how to communicate well. Get great professional help. Then moving on to tip number 8, renovation costs. Look, you may need to upgrade your property. Now, we're not saying put a new kitchen in, put new bathrooms in. We're not saying any of that at all. But we may need you to freshen it up, put some fresh flooring in, do a nice paint update. You may need to do some exterior work. Maybe there's termite damage because when people live in a house for a long time, there's generally termite work to be done. There's deferred maintenance on the property. You know, that toilet, it's leaking and you never got around to it. Now's the time to get around to it. So you also need to budget for potential renovations. Then that moves us right on to tip number 9, decluttering and staging, getting the house ready for market, right? You want to make sure you get rid of all of your stuff. Look, you're selling, you're moving, start packing. It's just the reality of it. Start packing, get it done, knock it out, put it away. When you choose to work with us, we get you a great stager who comes in and helps you to organize and prepare the house for market. It's a beautiful experience and it really takes all the stress off of it, because you don't need to be like, oh my gosh, the buyer doesn't even know what the space is. A stager is going to help you stage it to the best of the ability so that they do know what it is. Or they're going to say that bed is too big for that space. We need to do this instead. It is worth it to declutter and stage. And when I say it is worth it, your house will sell for at least 3 to probably 4% more when your house is staged. Now, look, those numbers are going to change depending on how you price the property. So don't hold me to those numbers, but I can tell you this. I have one that's closing pretty readily right now. We just staged it, $1,600 to stage the property, make it look beautiful. And I sold the house for $15,000 more. So it was well worth the payoff. Well worth the payoff. Because the reality is people walk into properties and they go, I can't see the space. I don't know if my bed fits in here. I don't know if my table will fit in here. When there's furniture already there, they go, oh yeah, no problem. My bed is just the same size as that. It will work out perfect. Staging and decluttering, getting rid of stuff so that buyers can make room for their story. Their stuff is worth every headache, hard work, expense. Just do it. It makes great sense. And that brings us to tip 10. Oh, the contingency plan. All right, look, I have one property that I love, sold it twice. Unfortunately, the first time around, the sellers couldn't find their replacement property in a timely fashion. So that buyer decided they didn't want to wait anymore. So we had to go back on market and find another buyer. Found another buyer, and that buyer had to sell their house. My recommendation is going to be put your house on the market and figure out where you're going to go just in case you don't find your replacement property, because you don't want to be pressured into finding your replacement property. You want time. You want to be able to look for that perfect home. I remember when my father sold his house and bought another house, he stayed with my grandfather for a year as an adult male with his husband. As an adult male with his wife, he stayed with his father for a year looking for that perfect home. And they found it. So many stories just like that. That's just my family story. For me personally, I've watched so many people who have successfully moved. I've helped so many people move from one house to another house. And sometimes you just aren't going to find it because we're in lack of inventory. So you got to make the commitment, because every time you fall out of escrow and go back on the market, your property loses just a little more in equity value. Find somewhere to go just in case. You're moving, just commit to it, and then find somewhere to hang out. Make it a vacation and just make the move. It will really help you move your life forward so much faster. I'm not saying you can't go from one home to another. I'm just saying have a backup plan. Be ready. No matter what you decide to do, when you decide to sell the home you've been in 5, 7, 10, 20 years, it's never easy. So you definitely want to make sure when you make that move, definitely want to make sure you're committed to make the move. It just makes great sense.